Alright guys, welcome back to the install of the IJDMTOY ditch lights. I want to start with a couple things before we go into the rest of the wiring and how to hook it up. So one of them was I painted these brackets black because they usually come silver. I don't like the look of them, so painting on black makes everything look more aesthetically pleasing. Number two, these bolts right here, I ended up going with another set of bolts that were a little bit shorter. That way they wouldn't stick out too much, and I did it placing up the bolt instead of going down with the nut at the bottom, so that way this looks at least a little more better. All right. Oh, there's another thing I wanted to go over. Okay, so when I hooked up the wiring for this, I didn't realize that the actual IJDM toy wiring for the lights were different from what I connected to it. So the wiring, one of them comes with the kind of like a pin. This one comes in a pin form and it connects, and then one of them is a flat one. Let me go to the other side. The other side's better to see. So one of them was a pin and the other one was flat. So see this one? This one's flat. It's a flat piece. And then the other one is a pin version, which I stuck under right here. And then so these, the lights themselves don't come with any of that stuff. So you need to go to the hardware store or auto parts store, get a flat style for this male insert, and then for the other one also a male insert for just the pointy version of the terminal. Okay, that out of the way, now we can talk about the wiring. All right, cool. So this is what I did with my wiring. So I basically started with the wiring first from one side to the other side of the connectors. Started with the lights first, and I gave myself enough slack right here so that way they wouldn't be tugging when you close the hood and stuff. And I also decided to wire it first this way. So what I did was I clipped this clip right here, and then I shoved the wiring through here, through this hole right here on this side, all the way through, and then through the bottom side of this, up this hole, and then to the connectors. And then this one, you just, this little tab right here, if I can find it, where is it? Right there. You just push that in that way, and then you just shove it back in and it clips. So through that hole, through the bottom down there where the wiring is. Let me push this back in. And then out through the top right here. And then I grabbed like a thin file, just kind of rub this back and forth, so that with the wires, when they get pushed down by this, if they do get pushed, they'll get just pushed in that crevice without getting squished. And then this cable right here was a little bit longer than the power wire, so I just kind of tucked it underneath the cowl so that way it wouldn't stick out as much. And then I connected it. All the connections, roughly, I think I waited until like the very last moment to actually connect them, because it was a lot easier just to get a rough diagram or a rough setup of it in case if I need to pull or anything, because if I didn't want to go ahead and wire it and then solder anything, or if I needed to before doing so. So with this wire, I ended up sticking it down under right here, and then I ended up shoving it back here in the shield just by taking off this bolt and that bolt, and then just shoving it back there. And then over there in the center part, you don't need to take this off. You can just tug it and then just slide the wire in there in the back. There's usually wires back here, probably for like the battery and stuff and some other components probably. But back here there's some wiring, and then usually you just stick it in there, it just falls in that same area. Then you can just put the wire in here, shove it in there, and it goes in. It goes all the way over there. Same thing over here. Shove the wire all the way over here, and then into this section. This was probably one of the harder parts, trying to figure out the wiring. So let me take this off. Now here's one of the most harder parts. So that wire ended up running through this section right here, all the way through. I zip tied right here and here to the existing wire right here. Excuse me. And then I kind of just got this wire set up first before I even decided to rewire this to the other light. I ended up trying to figure out what way was the best way to position it, and then this is good for you guys as well, so whoever's doing it. I first started with the relay position. So this relay right here, it's right there. I took this off of this bracket for this, and then it actually fits pretty good. I recommend filing the hole in this to make it bigger, so that way you can put the bolt through it and it doesn't crack the case, because I cracked the case, but it still works, but it's cracked right there just to hold it in place. So that's the relay right there. And then the red wire, which is the one for the battery, I run it through here, and then here goes to your fuse. I found it right here to be pretty easy to put the fuse here, and it kind of doesn't move around. It's just sitting there, and it works pretty great if you ever need to like take the fuse off or something, or you're working on it and stuff. You can just leave it here, pop the cover, take the fuse out, and then there's no more power running through your lights or your switch. And I ran that little red wire all the way around this way, through the back, over here, and I kind of looped it over that negative cable, and then I found this hoop right here, and I stuck it in there so that way it gets held in place, and ran it up into my positive. I went on the side because the little terminal for this is really small. You could probably run it here, but I tried to take this off. It didn't work out for me, so I just went here. I felt like this was gonna break if I took it off, so I ended up putting it here, and it works pretty well, and it's enough where the cover can go on without intervening anything. All right, so my negative cable is, so here's all the connectors, all the wires are here for the connector, and then this black cable right here that you see, the small one. Focus. Okay, that's your negative right there. So I just wrapped it underneath this big part of the harness, went under, found that ground off of this, bolted it in there, went perfectly. All right, let's go to the light wiring. Okay, so I stuck this wiring here, I shoved this through this hoop right here, and it goes down underneath this harness, so that way I just kind of shove it in areas or underneath certain wirings as well, so that way it doesn't flop around. And then I round it up. I put a zip tie right here, and then I kept running it up, and I found it here to be good for me because there's a cut on this thing right here, on this cover, and then if you put this cover on that wiring right there, it won't pinch it if you just adjust it properly. So I thought that worked pretty good. And then I ran these wires up above the plastic, not on the edge of the metal like the other one, because the other one had the protector, this one doesn't. So I ended up running it on top of the windshield cowl, in between the rubber and that. Ran it this way to my right, underneath this plastic, took this nut off, run it up here, and then back there, and to my lights. On this side, I had to extend the cables because they didn't reach for me. So I just ended up getting a red wire and another black wire. I soldered them right here, back here somewhere, and I extended them. Oh no, soldered them right here, and probably back there, right here and there, and I extended them at least another 4 or 5 inches on each line, and then I plugged this one here, and then this one I think it's plugged up here somewhere. There it is, right there. And then I like the way it came out because you really can't see the wire over here, and that was one of my main focuses. Was I didn't want to see any of the wires because it's such an eyesore when it's there. And then, like I said, I ran it down underneath and back into the connector. All right, the switch was probably the hardest one out of all of them. So the switch, I ended up running this cable through here underneath this, basically the same way I run the wiring for the lights. And then I saw this right here, the grommet. I was trying to figure out so many ways to try to run this, but this was probably the easiest way to run it. There's a grommet right there. Let's see if you guys can see it. Right there, that one. It has a little nipple on it. So what I thought, maybe I can run it through. So what I did was I cut the tip and I unpinned the terminal. I unpinned it and then slid the pins through with the whole cable all the way to the other side, which I will show you right now, and then it worked perfectly well. What I recommend doing is giving yourself some slack, of course, and then probably putting a little bit of soapy water on this line once you get it through, and just shove it in, pushing it all the way through until you get the cables out through that side, and then start pulling little by little, but don't pull it way too hard because you might, I don't know, break a wire or something. So let's go underneath. But honestly though, this looks like it might seal pretty well too. I don't think I need to put any tape, but this shield and this make a pretty decent seal so no water can get inside. Okay, let's see. So, I don't know, let's see if you guys can see here. Alright. So down here, over here, here's the grommet right here. And then let me try to get a light. All right, give me a sec, guys. Let me try to get a light. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, guys. All right, so here's the underneath of the car, and then there's your grommet, and then in there, if you guys can see, is the wire for the line sticking out, and you just basically try to squeeze it through, and then it comes out. And then I wired this way, so I went around the harness like this, like so, to try to prevent any like too loose or anything so my foot doesn't hit it. And then I found this little white hoop right here. That's for probably the cable for either the hood or the truck or the gas cap, and it has an extra hoop right here. So basically, I put the slider here. So basically you can unhook this clip by pulling it back, and it has a little extra little white hook right here. I separated this from these, from both black ones, and then I clipped it basically in there by itself, and it snaps in place. And that's basically your cable for your lights to try to get to your button. And they work pretty well because it's like in there well, and it doesn't move around. And then here is the cable for the switch, and I'm gonna show you guys how I did that one. So for the switch, what I ended up doing was this. So here's the switch right here. I used this pre-existing black button right here, and then there wasn't I thought there might have been something behind it. Maybe if you have the KDSS model with the detachable sway bar, maybe it's there, but this one doesn't have anything behind it. So I just unclicked it, if I can do it with my fingers. Let me see if I can do it. Ah. Hold on, guys. Let me get something. All right, cool. All right. So it has these things. It has this clip right here that doesn't clip onto anything of this button, and it clips here onto the side and here. And what I did is I sanded it down in 2 spots, here and here, and this will give it enough space. Let me focus it this way so that way you guys can see what I'm talking about. Will allow the wire, like, it gets squeezed but it won't like damage it. So I just kind of just put it back in its place and just reclip it back on, and there she goes. And I like the way it came out because it looks pretty damn clean. And then yeah, you have the damage just a little bit, but honestly you can't even tell. So that was a big plus for me. And then for the wiring, just push it back. Just try to snake it through this side. You don't have to take this cover off, that's too much work. Just snake the cable on down here, and I'll show you guys how I kind of wired it. All right, it's gonna be hard to see a bit, but the cable's like right here onto the connector, goes around. And remember, that cable is only able to go through the here. The male one was only able to go through by depinning it. You can usually just get a little tiny pick, push on it, on the actual pins they each, push it down, and they should come out each one by one. But remember, the wiring order for the connector, do not get the mix. You will have some issues. You will burn things, probably a fuse or anything like that. So be very careful. Be mindful of how you put the connectors back in their spot. Take pictures if we have to. Okay, so here's the cable right here for the switch. There's the plug. I ran it here, ran it this way, I ran it over here, and then basically it came out through here. And it's very hard to see, but it came out through here around probably the back side of this, from all the way up there. It's very hard to tell. You're just gonna have to trust me on this, guys. But basically you drop it from over there, you grab it from this angle right here, the wire, it'll come here, you run it all the way through the back side. But basically you're tucking it back here, and then keep running it, wrap it around, and then plug it back over there. And then the remaining wire you can basically shove in once you already connect it, and then it'll stay. It won't go anywhere. It'll stay here. It won't get stuck in the column or anything. So I was very careful to do that. And then your button's right there after. So which makes it look super duper clean. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with it, the way it came out. All the wiring looks pretty clean. You can't even see it. So hopefully this works as a reference for somebody out there. And here's the button. Turns on. Switches color. And now it's on. I'll post a different video later on during the nighttime, so that way you guys can see how bright they are. Alright, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully this is helpful to anybody else that was wondering how to wire this up, and this is a good reference for it. Alright, take care.